Hello, my friends. AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. Welcome back to my face, my card making space. Skeleton hands. And another Halloween video. Disclaimer: the card I'm showing today will be any occasion. It's actually not even going to have a Halloween sentiment. However, it has Halloween in mind. It has Halloween in its spirit. So I'm gonna put it with my Halloween series. Because why not? Why not? But again, as you either saw from the thumbnail or you're going to see, it can be any occasion. So I'm gonna use one of the sort of new products, I'll explain that in a second, from Altenew's October 2025 release, along with some oldie but goodie favorites. Like everything, I will have links to all the things in the description box below the video. My links are affiliate links. That just means that if you click on one of my links and end up placing an order, I do get a little kickback from that at no extra cost to you. That is what helps pay the bills, keeps the lights on, enables me to keep bringing out content. And then today's video is also going to be a real-time video. So a little bit longer because it's not chopped up, edited, sped up, you know. I can chat and create with you guys in real time. I do these every once in a while just to mix and match for funsies. I'm using the Mix Foliage Layering Die Set. This is part of the October 2025 release. However, it's not brand new. Those of you that took the Cozy Comfort Retreat last year, so 2024, hi. That was my very first. I was one of the instructors for that. My very first ever official sort of job instructing, whatever. This die set was part of that retreat, part of that kit. So a lot of you probably already have it. And then now it's available to the masses, all the things. So I pulled this out because I want to use the florals. I have this idea in my head for what we're going to make. And then this is another oldie but goodie. This came out last year, the year before, I forget. The Pretty Pumpkins Layering Die Set. I did a video on this. I actually made holiday cards with this. And in the end screen, at the very end of the video, I'll put the link to that video to show. I did them in like silvers and whites, and it was fun. I really like this set. So I pulled those out, and I did my die cutting. And I'm going to start with these smaller flowers in the set, and I die cut these multiple times. I die cut them from just Neenah Classic Crest Solar White cardstock. And what I'm going to color these with is going to be a little bit crazy. It's all going to make sense. Okay? You just gotta bear with me here. There's a method to the madness. You know? So we're going to use fresh dye inks, and I have my little mini blending brushes, and we are just going to start with the lightest shade, which is limestone. And my mini blending brushes, I start at the very center with that first application, and then I start dragging it out towards the tips. I want them to be white, and then just the color, which grays, just concentrated towards the center. And like I said, this is not traditional, but that's the whole point. I was actually inspired by a different product that I literally kept the tab open on my browser for weeks because it had popped up in my feed, and I was like, and it was just sitting in the back of my mind. And I was like, I need to make a card with this. And then more and more things just started. I was like, ooh, what if I added a pumpkin? What if I did this? What if I did this? And this is why I'm making this card. So blend it on the lightest shade. Got all my brushes organized, all fancy in that fancy brush holder. Love it. So now we'll go in with the medium, or yeah, the medium shade. This one I'm not going as far, like keeping this more towards the centers. I gotta just kind of quickly blend that out a bit. I went a little heavy-handed. Not the end of the world. Not the end of the world. Kind of just blend it with the lighter brush. Yep, that'll be fine. So yeah, a little lighter handed because this ink pad is juicy. There we go. I've talked about that. I'm very heavy handed and I'm just like, you know, it is what it is. It is what it is. So we'll just do just lighter pressure, you know, not trying to force it. And then blending that in. And technically, like, if you were doing just white daisies, you know, like you wanted a floral to be white, you would still add. You could add grays, even maybe just some little purples, just to add that bit of depth and shading it to make it even look even more white. That's not what I'm doing here. Like, I want the dark gray to really show. I would use just like the lightest shade probably. And maybe a little bit of dark is at the very base. If I was wanting to keep these like white, just white daisies. So the little bit of light gray and then maybe a tiny bit of the darker and leave it at that just to give that bit of depth so that it's not just flat white. But ooh, this one is extra juicy. I'll have to be very light-handed with this one. But yeah. In fact, I'll tap this off on my glass mat a bit. These I want though, like quite intense with these shades because I'm going sort of Halloween, but also just something sort of different. So this guy, again, just kind of keeping my circles now like smaller so that they're just like that. So I'm not pulling this out really far. There we go. And then we've got this guy like that. And then after I've like, you know, kind of applied and there's not really much left on the brush, that's when I'll do like wider circles just to kind of soften and blend. So it's like apply it first, tight little concentric circles to keep most of the color there. And then just with a lighter hand, like I'm kind of barely pressing with the brush, pulling out that color. It's like dirt, 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 and then do like that. Just like that. Love it. Okay, so got that one. And then I am going to do the deepest shade, which is pure graphite. This guy is also very dark and also very juicy. So same thing, just, yeah. Oh, that's what I wanted. That is exactly what I was aiming for. Love it. There we go. Apply a little bit of the excess, just like that. And then, yeah, just trying to keep, again, a really light hand, because this is a very dark, you know, almost black. So just do like that. Love it. Okay, I'm gonna take these off and then stick the other pieces on, and I'll be back in a second. Okay, we're gonna do purples for the larger daisy, just to bring in that extra color. So start with wisteria. And kind of doing the same thing, except I'm going to drag this out a little bit further towards the tips of the petals, but still keeping it like fade to white, just because I like that. I like that contrast. So go in with that lightest. Doop. There we go. Lightest. And then our medium shade. And then this one, just not as far. Starting in the center and then, you know, making the circles bigger like that. And whatever's like left on the brush. So that one. And then with these shades, because they are literally ultraviolet, is a very intense color. Love it. Love it. I'm doing the exact same thing, like starting right in the very center, and then whatever's left on the brush, just like dragging it out like that. Oh, those are pretty. So that one. And then the last one is Andromeda, which is a very intense purple. It's just light hand at first, and then pulling it out. Oh, so pretty. So pretty. Okay. So those are the purples. And then for these little leaves, and these are all from that same mix foliage set. So for the leaves, I've got frayed leaf. And just scrubbing my brush off on a microfiber cloth. So frayed leaf. Just like so. With these, just basically slapping the color on. Like that. That's my latest shade. So that one. And then I'm doing Forest Glades. Starting from the base. And then pulling it up to blend the two together. I've talked about this. These inks do dry back as they fully dry. So dry back, they soften a bit, they smooth out, they blend, and they lighten a little bit. So it'll always look a lot darker at first when the ink is still wet, and then they will soften and dry back a fair bit, not a ton, but they will dry back. So then my final shade is Evergreen. Oop. Evergreen. And this one. There we go. And same thing, just applying it at the base. And then as the ink, like as there's less and less ink on the brush, then I just start pulling the brush and swirling it up like that. That gives me my blend, and then the ink does the rest as it dries. There we go. Okay, on to the next part. Now on to the pumpkins. So I pulled out butternut for and I've kind of got them arranged in the order that they'll be layered together. So this top layer is going to be my latest shade, like so. And then I'm going to add it to the second layer, but this one's, I'm also just going to add like darker ink. This is just kind of to get it started in a sense. And then the next shade's going to blend right into it. So definitely not worrying about getting like a nice blend, because this is all going to get basically covered up. So we have butternut. And then pumpkin pie. Kind of fitting. So pumpkin pie is going to be this layer, like so. like that. And then again, we're gonna get that on here, like that. Same thing with this. And this. There we go. And then blend it onto the big guy. And of course, all of these, just like the vast majority of Altenew's die sets, all have like deboss detail in them as well, which one adds to the overall look of everything, but also at times ends up being sort of a visual guide of where to adhere the different layers. Because this set does not have like the keyhole system, but it honestly doesn't need it. These come together like super, super easily in my opinion, so keyhole wasn't necessary as far as I'm with a set like this. I just like it's pretty self-explanatory. There's the layering guide like on the actual back of the packaging, but yeah. Okay, so now we're going with yellow ochre, which is a much deeper shade, so I'm going to kind of concentrate this more on like pulling it up from the bottom of these so it can just fade into the pumpkin pie shade. And again, I'm not being super concerned about like my blend. I'm just literally slapping the ink on because all of this is just blending into each other and it'll smooth out as it dries. You know, I'm going to add all the layers. Most likely I'm going to add splatter. Here we go. Yeah, got that one. And then the final shade is Sicilian Amber. That. So that one, again, just kind of keeping it more towards the bottom to just add that depth. Boop. Boop. There we go. Okay, so that's those. And then for my little pumpkin stems, I got some mocha. Just like that. Slap her on. And then I've got a bit of espresso. And that I'll go in with, let's just go in with a little micro blending brush. And doing that more just right at the base. There we go. There we go. Okay, so for assembly, there is the die that cuts the flower centers. There is actually two other pieces with the keyholes for each one, you know, so you can line them up. I didn't bother because you just lay it. These ones are ridiculously easy to put together, and I just didn't bother. The centers, I didn't ink blend. I die cut these from Altenew's Smoky Quartz glitter paper. Love. Love. And then one, you just match up the keyhole. It is hard to see with such like dark inking, but there's also numbers debossed. So there's a 1 on this one and a 2. So you just layer 1, layer 2. Some of the keyhole sets, and of course my glue is clogged, some of the keyhole sets have many layers, 7, 8, however many. And having all the numbers definitely helps along with the layering guides on the packaging. And then another thing, depending on the set, sometimes I will bring up the product listing online, like on my computer screen, especially if it's it's a more detailed layering, you know, keyhole set. And I'm just like, because the layering guide can only fit, you know, however much in size. So sometimes I'll bring it up online, and that way I can like expand it, you know, blow it up really big. And then it's like, oh, okay, I get what you are trying to do, you know? But again, with a set like this, just easy. Layer 1, layer 2, and then if you have the third layer for the flower center, you'd put that one on, and then you would just cover it with your flower center. But for this, we're just doing it like that. And then it's the same thing with this guy. Different shaped keyhole. This one says 1, this one says 2. Does it really matter? Nope. You can do whatever you want. You could also die cut these multiple times and stack more layers if you wanted to. Like, there's no rules. There are no rules. You can do whatever you want. So got that. And then that. And that. We've got sparkly. So I'll do those final guys off camera. The pumpkins. These, like I said, do not have the keyhole, but they're super easy to assemble. Like, it's literally just that. And then this. Oop, make sure they're right side up, you know. So we'll just add our liquid glue to the pieces, just like so. And then these guys line up. Like, they just kind of line up with like the bottom edges as well, along with some of the deboss lines. And then we've got this little guy. So we'll just adhere him like that. And then there's this little piece like this. Just like that. And then we've got all of these pieces that adhere like this. Right along there. Like that. Love it. Love. I just love like the dimension. And you could always skip, you know, if ink blending isn't your thing, you could just die cut these from different colors of cardstock. You could even just die cut them from all the same. If you don't have lots of colors of cardstock, you die cut them all from the same shade of cardstock and still stick them together. You'll still get the dimension, you know, with the different layers. Whatever floats your boat. You could also use just solid color cardstock and do quick little ink blending to add some depth to it. It's like just one color of orange cardstock and a couple different shades of orange or even some brown ink. Layer that on there, you know, that would work amazingly. It would work amazingly. And then this little guy just like tucks right in there. Oh, I love it. Okay, I'm gonna assemble all the other ones, and then I'll be back. Love it. Okay, I've got things assembled. I've got a layout figured out. I've done a sentiment. I will get to the sentiment in a minute. I want to create a grounding for that cluster. And with that, yet again, Gotta use the essential textures of fine wood grain because I'm obsessed, but also because it is perfect. That's what I keep saying to everyone. So if you're not familiar with press plates, I do have a playlist of videos I've done, and one of the very first ones, I did like an unboxing of it live and used it right out the gate. I love press plates. I love them. I love them so much, and I especially love this wood grain because it goes with everything. So I've got the press plate. It's on my Better Press. I have this dark gray cardstock. Yeah, this is going to work. And I'm just going to attach it to my clear plate here with just a little bit of Altenew's tape runner, because I don't want to use my tape on the corners, because this is 5.5 inches. This is going to go right along the bottom of my card and probably a little bit extra for the inside. So I'll just use the tape to hold this in place like so. Yep. And then to ink up the plate, I'm going to use that darkest shade, which is the pure graphite. And I've shown this in a bunch of videos. I've talked about this a lot. I love Altenew's fresh dye inks with press plates because these ink pads are the felt. You know, the felt ink pad with the linen tops are a bit firmer. You can use pretty much any ink with this. I have done it. The only thing you have to remember is with foam ink pads, you just have to be a lot more careful. Because usually, you know, you're using a fair bit of pressure to apply the ink. And with foam ink pads, if you're like mushing it down here, the ink is just going to get into everything. You're going to end up with a mess. But it does work. And same with like pigment inks. They work great with this too. You just have to use a lot lighter of a hand because those softer ink pads, you don't want to mush the ink because then you run the chance of that ink just pressing, all of it pressing, and then you've just got a mess. So making sure I've covered the whole area just about. I just want a teensy bit more. Like that. Love it. So I've got that. And then this just hovers it right above. And then I'm going to run this through my Platinum 6. That is the only drawback, I guess, in a sense. The Better Press does not work in like the Anna Griffin Empress machine. There is a compatibility chart with the Better Press saying like what machines it does work with. Obviously it works with the Platinum 6 because they're both spellbinders, but yeah, does not work with the Empress. I get asked that one a lot, and no. Okay, and then the magic. Oh, I love it. I love it so much. I love press plates. I wish, like, one, the detail's amazing. I wish you could see, like, there is texture, even though it's just thin cardstock. When you want the real Better Press, like that really deep press texture, that's where you have to use like thicker cardstocks. Watercolor papers especially work beautifully. That said, I don't care. I love them just as is. And again, in real life, there is texture. It's just you can't see it, but you can see it in real life. And like, told y'all, the wood grain, it's amazing. I will have I'm gonna have another video either coming the day after this one, depending on my editing time and when this video goes up. I have another video coming. It'll either be, just stay tuned, it'll be the day after this, or if it's already up because I wasn't able to get this done in time, it'll be linked in the end screen. But yeah, I have another video coming using this press plate, along with one of the other little sentiments I'm using, but like I said, I'll get to that in a second. So the nice thing too about using the fresh dye inks with Better Press is just wipes up. It just wipes up, you know? I don't have to use any crazy cleaners or anything. It's just good to go. Okay. So I've trimmed apart my pieces. Just gonna shoot. This is a top folding A2 note card, so 5.5 by 4.25 inches. And on the inside, I'm gonna adhere one of the strips that I pressed. And then my smaller pumpkin, the one daisy, and a little bit of my little bits and bobs here. I was like, we could stick that like that. Kind of go like this. And this. A little bit overkill. Could also be a card front. Totally works. For my sentiment, I'm going to use... Oh, that just works. Okay, this is from this monster set. This is the... What's the name of this one again? Flutter and Bloom set. Enormous. This is a 10, like 8 by 12, I think. Something like that. Like enormous stamp set. Gorgeous. Big, big stamps and butterflies. Love it. It's beautiful. Anyway, I took the Thanks for Simply Being You sentiment from this set. And I'm going to stamp that just along the bottom here. I could do this with my stamp wheel, but I have 5 million things just cluttered all over here. So we're just gonna tuck that in like that. Like that. Good enough. Okay, I'm gonna adhere all the bits and then I'll be back in a second and we'll get the front. Okay, I've glued on all my bits minus the sentiments. Because again, we'll get to those. Everything's glued down. I want to add splatter. So I just glued everything. I didn't add any foam tape, anything. It's just a little bit of washi tape, just any low tack tape. I'm just going to stick it like right there. Just to kind of hold the card closed to sort of prevent the splatter. Sometimes it still manages to get under the cover. I don't care. It's not the end of the world. But that just helps a little bit so that we can add some splattery bits, you know. So we'll start with some white splatter with my titanium white gouache from Altenew that I've used up, or well, used half up. This stuff, a tube of that will last a normal person probably multiple lifetimes. Me, I thought it would last me multiple lifetimes, but then again, if y'all that have followed my content for any length of time, you guys know I like to splatter. So I just put a little bit of the gouache on my palette, and then I added water to thin it down because it's very thick. Like it's not splatterable, like straight out the tube. So I just add water to thin it out, and then I just kind of stir it and mix it all together with my fan brush. And then once it's all incorporated, there we go, I can load up my brush and add splatter. I most definitely want to get it on all these die cut pieces just to add that texture to it. And even on the card base, even though you can't see it very well on camera and stuff, you know, white on white like that, but it's there. It's definitely there. So get all that on there, just like so. Love it. Clean off my brush in the jar of forbidden water. Wipe this off. You technically can just let gouache dry and you can reactivate it with water. I just don't bother because I am all over the place, you know, changing things, change my mind, yada, yada, yada. But you can. Be aware, though, that if you let them, if it's something like this, like a plastic little palette like this, keep in mind that if you do just let it dry on something like this, there's a good chance because you've added water to it, you know, so it's very thin, it'll dry, but it'll start to flake and lift up. That's another reason why I just don't bother. I just wipe it up when I'm done because there's not really much there. But it's just something to keep in mind that if you allow gouache to like dry on something like plastic like this, that is what will most likely happen, is it'll just start flaking up. Because I let that happen. I was doing like batch creating and came back like the next day, so I just left on my palette. It's like, oh, and yeah, it was flaking everywhere, which the black especially. So I'll use black gouache. This stuff is extremely pigmented. It stains everything. Love it, because it is black. But yeah, it was like flaking everywhere, and I was like, oh no, I do not need this like getting on my clothes. You know. So same thing. I put a bit of black gouache on there, added some water, and like it's just solid black. So I love the black gouache. And then I've already got quite a bit on this brush. So we're gonna add some black splatter. Just like that. A little bit up here. And there we go. I wanted a couple like blobs. Love it. Okay, now I just gotta let that dry and clean up. Okay, this is mostly dry, not 100%, but enough. In fact, I'm gonna leave the tape just to keep everything a little easier to deal with. The sentiments, I used the Timeless Sentiments die set. I've used this one multiple times, love it. I used the Friend Sentiment. I die cut it from the Smoky Quartz glitter cardstock. Adhered a second layer of white. The outline I die cut from vellum. And then on the back, I adhered just one layer of the die cut word with just white, a scrap of white cardstock that I die cut it from. Putting the layer on the back just bumps it up a little bit, like lifts the vellum. Plus it makes it easier because this is where I'm going to put my glue. So I'm not having to trace behind the sentiment from the front because glue shows through vellum because vellum is just finicky. So this way I can easily adhere this with very little effort. It's not as big of a deal with a sentiment like this that has like enough wide areas. It's more delicate sentiments that I really like having the layer of cardstock on the back, but it's now become just habit because then I can just stick the glue on the cardstock die cut. I'm not touching the vellum at all. And like I said, it bumps it up just that little bit. And if you wanted to create more, you could die cut like more layers and really, you know, build dimension. I'm not going to bother. In fact, I've never bothered. I just wanted to like tuck this in right about there. Just like that. And get that into place. In fact, I'll stick a magnet on there and let that dry for a minute. There we go. And then for my little companion sentiment, this is just from this little mini sentiments embossing folder. Again, I have a video either coming tomorrow, depending on when this goes up, or it'll be up already. So if I manage to get things done on time, it'll be coming in the next day or so. So just stay tuned. Or if it's already up because life got away from me, it'll be linked in the end screen. So I show like how I run this through my die cut machine. But yeah, I just ran some little jet black cardstock through, and then I just wiped Cloud White Pigment Ink over it after I trimmed it out. So it just looks like that. So we've got that. And then I'm just going to stick that, and I'm actually going to stick like a thin little foam square on that end of it just to even everything out because I've got all these, you know, layers of die cuts. So we're going to stick that into place like that. We go. So he has that. And then my final embellishment, dug through, I've got some Smoky Quartz. Kind of perfect. And Altenew's, where's my tool? There it is. No, that's not it. Where did it go? There it is. These are self-adhesive. They're self-adhesive, which is wonderful. So all we have to do is peel and stick, which is always a great thing. So we'll just add a few of these. To this card front. Put one there. We can tuck in. Tuck one under there. Put one right there. And we're good. We are good. There is our finished card. So let me get that tape carefully off of the inside. Okay. So there is our finished Halloween adjacent card. Again, this can be anything. It's not, it doesn't say Happy Halloween. There's no bats, just sort of Halloween colors, pumpkin, black splatter, So in my world, this definitely, works. And for those that kind of like the concept of more Halloween, but don't like making Halloween cards, because I get it. This is a way to kind of dip your toe in a little bit without going full on like spider webs and ghosts and you know what I mean. So we got just sparkle galore. I love that Smoky Quartz. And then we've got our inside, which also could be a clean and simple card front. Love it. Love it. So thank you guys so much for hanging out with me, thumbs upping, commenting, all of it. I very much appreciate it. And I'll see you all very soon in another video. Bye. Thank you so much to my amazing Patreon supporters. For anyone that might be interested in joining my Patreon community and supporting me, the link to my Patreon is in the description box below the video. For everyone else, as always, thank you all so much for taking the time to watch my videos, for thumbs upping, commenting, subscribe if you haven't, I'd love to have you. And here's a couple other videos for you to check out in case you missed them. Bye!